Forced from their beds, detained and interrogated, patients from Kamal Adwan Hospital brought today to Gaza City with their accounts of what happened when Israeli soldiers moved in.
They were shooting through the windows. There were artillery shells by the gates. We came out at 7:30 a.m. and didn't know what to do or where to go.
Paramedics said these patients had been left in the cold for 24 hours before they were able to reach them and bring them here.
We were taken for interrogation at around 3 p.m. They stripped us naked and left us there until sunset, with no one to help us. We were left in the dust, and then one soldier would come to curse at us and spit at us. It was very ugly.
This was Kamal Adwan Hospital earlier this week, bearing the marks of what its director said were intensifying Israeli attacks. This afternoon, the Israeli military released this footage of its special forces inside the hospital, saying it had seized 240 people in the area that it defined as terrorists, along with grenades, guns and other military equipment. These images of some of the detentions emerged yesterday. Israel said 15 of the people it arrested had infiltrated its territory as part of the October the 7th attacks, and that the hospital director, Hussam Abu Safia, was arrested on suspicion of being a terrorist operative. NGOs have accused Israel of targeting him for publicizing Israeli attacks on a medical facility.
There is an understanding in Israel that when it comes to hospitals or schools, places like that, there is a sensitivity and there is a need to show evidence. I know that there is serious operation there against terror infrastructure in the hospital, and this is why the IDF is taking the measures.
Kamal Adwan was the last functioning medical facility in Gaza's far north, where, since October, Israeli troops have been forcing out civilians and destroying buildings. Israel denies accusations of ethnic cleansing with the aim of creating a permanent buffer zone. It says it launched a new operation in the north overnight, targeting terrorists and their infrastructure. And as those troops moved in, Hamas fired 2 long-range rockets from northern Gaza towards Jerusalem. Israel said both were intercepted. The airstrikes continue to the south as well. 9 people, including 4 children and a woman, killed when their home was hit overnight in central Maghazi. And medics say there's an increasingly deadly threat, a combination of poor shelter and winter cold. 4 newborn babies reported dead in recent days from hypothermia.
Well, earlier I spoke to Dr. Tanya Haj Hassan, a pediatric intensive care physician who has worked inside Gaza. She's now in Jordan, and I began by asking her about Dr. Abu Safia's whereabouts.
Yeah, we've heard that he's been detained and heavily beaten, that he was placed in kind of white detainee clothing after being stripped, and that he has been taken to a nearby school. We thought initially, we're not sure, but we know that he's been detained.
He is the director of this facility. What was the last functioning hospital in northern Gaza? What does it mean that some of the medical staff have been detained?
Despite repeated calls for international protection by the staff at the hospital, including the hospital director, Hussam Abu Safia, who just 4 days ago pleaded with the world, saying that the world must understand that our hospital is being targeted with intent to kill and forcibly displace us. And in fact, that is exactly what's happening. We know that 5 healthcare workers from Kamal Adwan were just killed recently. We know that hundreds of healthcare workers, patients, and caretakers were forcibly taken out of the hospital. They were stripped. Many were beaten with, we're told, sticks, batons. They were spat on after being stripped naked and kept in the cold for hours. There are some that have been released, and they're providing these testimonies that I'm sharing with you right now. But for the rest, we don't know about their whereabouts, their well-being, whether they're alive or dead.
We've had limited accounts from some of the patients who have emerged, but we don't know if that is all of them. And what about the patients who are in the most serious condition requiring ventilation? What about them?
What the Israeli military has essentially done to these patients is given them a death sentence. So we understand that they were forcibly moved to the Indonesian hospital. The Indonesian hospital is the third public hospital in Gaza. It was mostly put out of function this past week by the Israeli military. It's been destroyed for the most part. It has no access to electricity, no access to running water, and the oxygen supply has also been impacted, so they cannot provide oxygen.
What the Israeli military is saying is that they had no connection to the fire there. They're saying that they safely evacuated the patients, and they're saying that the hospital was a Hamas military stronghold. Now, we've heard that claim before. They haven't provided evidence. What do you make of that?
I think 15 months into this, we've all heard this propaganda, this military propaganda shared over and over and over again on mainstream media. I think at one point, you learn from the first, second, and third time that these claims are proven false, and they were proven false with all their previous attacks on essentially every single hospital in the Gaza Strip. So at this point, honestly, I struggle to tolerate even listening to that as a response to anything. Even if that were true, which has been proven over and over again that it is not, the Israeli military has essentially decimated the entire healthcare system for a population that is besieged, starved, and undergoing a genocide.
Dr. Tanya Haj Hassan, thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, in the last half hour, the IDF has responded to reports that detainees were beaten and stripped, saying it has no knowledge of that, but specific claims will be investigated.